As almost mentioned, our theme for the Merry, Merry month of May is pluralism. The term has several meanings in different disciplines, so today I want to look at what's known as values pluralism. And I will claim that values pluralism is an ethical imperative for those of us dedicated to a democratic style society. As I've been writing this week, as most of us have, I've been reading the news, and have mentioned several times from this podium that peaceful civil disobedience is part of our tradition. It is a product of Unitarian thinking. Without a Henry David Thoreau, there could not have been civil disobedience of the style that Martin Luther King practiced. I remember that my oldest daughter, who's almost 40 now, her first trip outside as an infant was to a Divest from Apartheid rally about 40 years ago. And it worked, actually. Divestment from South Africa did lead to, eventually, the retreat of apartheid. Without Henry and our continuing transcendentalist tradition, there could have been no Nelson Mandela either. Peaceful civil disobedience is essential to democracy and values pluralism. The central philosopher of values pluralism is Isaiah Berlin, who you may have heard of, and he very closely read the work of Ralph Waldo Emerson, another connection to the Unitarian tradition. As I was researching online this week, I came across a slide that I found interesting reading. Pluralism, it says, is already becoming the dominant theology of Americans. I like that. Pastors and Christian leaders take note and address the influence of pluralism in our world today, which is what I do intend to talk about today, but I suspect not like our Christian siblings talk about it, which underlines the importance of our liberal religious tradition. We are born into a state, but we're born stateless. We're born religionless. We're born raceless. We're born genderless. Then, family, society, time, the tides, whatever, they intervene into our lives. Then, each of us becomes a citizen or a subject, a bundle of assumptions that we ourselves seldom take the time to examine. Too often during this process, we learn to other, seeing the other as other, seeing others as others that have some kind of loaded meaning to them. And therein lies the challenge for liberal thinking. An ethical challenge that each of us must make. How far does our cooperation with social norms go before we must say, no, I'm not going there? Each of us is born a kind of beautiful chaos, and then society begins to order us and get us into those various things. And then it's order, chaos. Now let's think about something you don't think about every day, 451 of the Common Era. It's roughly 400 years into the development of Christianity. What met that year was the Council of Chalcedon. In this illustration from the time period, if you look at it, what you see is a society that is not in chaos. It is well ordered. It is patriarchal. Everything is good with this Christianity driving away this chaos. God's intentions and human intentions are in total agreement. Theocracy. From the conclusion of that conference, here's a statement. We all teach harmoniously that he, Jesus, The same perfect in Godhead, the same perfect in manhood, truly God and truly man, the same of a reasonable soul and body. Homoousios, not a word you see all that often. Homoousios with the Father in Godhead, and the same homoousios as in manhood, acknowledged in two natures, without confusion, all right, without change, without division, without separation. Notice what they have in mind. Homoousios, meaning of the same substance with, that's the idea of the Trinity. And the words describe the being of Jesus. But listen to the hope in those words, again, without confusion, without change, without division, without separation. Those Christians had it all figured out until they didn't. Now, how very upsetting that those protesters, those Protestants, upset the perfect arrangement of the best of all possible worlds. Very different fashion sense, as you can see. Very upsetting. Pluralism raised its frightening head, and people could be Christian and still have differing values. Chaos seeping into the cracks. But thanks to those Puritans with male pattern baldness, chaos was driven away and sanity and order returned to this new world until it didn't. Out there in the outback of Kentucky, women, natives, Africans, suddenly they all felt free to speak with what they considered to be the power of the Holy Ghost, as they called it in those days, the Holy Spirit, that gave them the opportunity to talk despite all of the oppression. And thus we see that religion is, yes, a power for order, but it's also been in the background of westernized societies, also an agent of chaos and an agent of change. Women, they even brought dogs. My God. What kind of a church is that? But that's what begins happening in the United States as we celebrate the separation of church and state. Excuse me. Even some might question that God speaks Latin after a while. Maybe he's not Italian after all. Chaos ensues, a chaos of values. What might happen if God slipped out of the hands of the male elite, the European elite, the white elite? What would happen then? Oh my God, chaos! As I see it, we are what happened. We are the most protesting of Protestants, as I say fairly often. There's order, there's chaos, but also there is orderly chaos, isn't there? And that's what democracy is, I think. It's how democracy can happen. Values pluralism. Isaiah Berlin was a 20th century philosopher born in Latvia. As a child, Berlin witnessed the Russian Revolution firsthand. At one point, he was watching out their window, and he saw a man lynched from a lamp post. Now, the family escaped the Russian Revolution and went to England, where Berlin eventually attended Oxford University. Berlin never forgot the potential evil of a mob. He never got the picture out of his mind. He never forgot that deep conviction can get people killed. People die. Berlin defined values as beliefs about how life should be lived. Sounds reasonable. What men and women should do and be. Sounds reasonable. But that's about it. Other than that, you're free to choose as far as Berlin was concerned. One of my insistences is that humanists accept the difficult task of human beings, that human beings are more important than ideas. And I've said this over and over again, but I think it's a good thing to say. It's kind of on that ideal level of love your neighbor as yourself, which ain't happening where I live. But love your neighbor as yourself, and people matter more than ideas. I think these are ideals to pursue. It's a radical statement, yes, but I think it's clarifying if we start from that place. People matter more than ideas. The situation in Gaza, people matter more than ideas, either political ideas or religious ideas. From a humanist perspective, all religions are made up by people. It's people's ideas. Why would we want to kill people for ideas? Homoousis, however, that was a solution from a committee, right? And that's about how much sense the Trinity has made over time, and that's why we have Unitarians. Bloodshed was averted, but the footnote is many volumes long. Human beings are taught insane propositions. Kill each other as we do, whether or not we really believe it even. I'm a Christian, therefore I must do this. But how many millions of Europeans died? Millions of Europeans died in the war between whether or not God's body, Jesus' body and blood, appears in the sacrament. That's insanity, religious insanity. We buy into very human and very flawed ideas, and then we act violently to support them. There is a particular God who gave a particular people a particular piece of real estate. Really? It's laughable, but it's not. Let's ask it another way. Do people deserve to be murdered because they think there is a God who gave them real estate? And I don't really think so. Is murder the way to solve a social situation in which some human beings think that a particular God gave them a particular piece of real estate and other people don't think so? It's a weird reason to kill each other, isn't it? Was it fine for the Russian Bolsheviks to hang a human being from a lamppost because that person believed that the czars should be in charge of the government? People matter more than ideas. Berlin outlined the path to big T truth, and I think it's useful for us to think about that. Number one, the path to big T truth is all genuine questions must have one true answer and one only. All other responses are errors. Two, there must be a dependable path to discovering the true answer to a question which is in principle knowable even if currently unknown. Three, the true answers when found will be compatible with one another, forming a single whole, for one truth cannot be incompatible with another, assuming that the universe is harmonious and coherent, which we have recently discovered it's not. But as many of you remember, I caution against using terms like truth and facts. You have to be careful about those. You don't get to make up facts, right? And think about this. This is Arcturus, right? Arcturus, remember? There are facts about that star that were arrived at by the scientific method. Those are facts. Those are consensus reality, we call it. A reality discovered by the scientific method. And the scientific method says it can't be scientific if it can't be disproven, remember. So that may be wrong. We don't know. But right now, that's what we think about that particular star. But what about the facts of God? Is there one true answer and one only? Well, our Christian friends thought so back in 451. Is there a dependable path to deliver the answer? Old white guys talking, apparently. right? Are all answers compatible? Appears not. Right? Here is where, as Isaiah Berlin knew, things break down. And it's why Christian pastors are being warned to protect their ideas from very simple questions. Yet in the marketplace of ideas, clearly values pluralism is the only way for humanity to survive on a shrinking, warming planet. Values pluralism, but not facts pluralism, and that's the difference between how most of us are thinking and how many others are. Take, for example, flat earthers. What is the number one common factor among flat earth folks? Well, you see this little pie chart down there. The orange, that's the number who have no college at all. The blue is the number of flat earth believers who have gone at least a little college. Lack of education. Can they distinguish between facts and theories? Have they been told the facts of a God out there? And then we go into subjectivity, don't we? Could flat earthers be worked into a killing frenzy? The history of humanity says it might happen, actually. Often I feel that the little child Isaiah Berlin must have often flashed back on that image out his apartment window. Why do people kill each other over ideas? He became obsessed with the question. Why must we kill each other over concepts? Things like politics, economics, real estate, religion. Frankly, I refuse to be a realist about that. Human beings matter more than ideas, even if we have to sometimes bend that around a bit in our mind. As long as there are people, there will be more ideas. We are the idea generators. Don't kill us just because we have one. When conversation breaks down, when discussion breaks down, when reasoning together breaks down, guess what? We don't become animals, actually, because we're already animals. Rather, we join a very small subset of animals that kill without being hungry. Chimpanzees, orca whales, bottlenose dolphins, domesticated cats, a few species of ants, and us. We are the only animals on that list who could conceivably choose not to kill. Conceivably choose not to kill. But what about Ukraine? Well, I know. We have a lot of work to do. This is not an academic exercise. Yet we must remember this. We humans are among the animals that kill without being hungry, yes. That explains mob violence. Yet nation states do not do war based on basic human psychology. A fight in a Quickie Mart parking lot is not the same as operating a missile system. They're different psychologies. Some of us in the room today have faced that difference and faced the have to of the draft. And some of us remember Country Joe and the Fish. 1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for? Don't tell me, I don't give a damn. Next stop is Vietnam. And a lot of us felt that way at one time. But missile systems and fighting in a parking lot are not the same human psychology. And all these years later, aren't too many human beings still missing the irony of that old song that goes, you know that peace can only be won when you blow them all, the kingdom come. That wasn't supposed to be taken seriously. That's never the way to peace, ever. How can we manifest in the nation and the world the basic idea that human beings matter more than ideas? Actually, we have the tools. Yes, despite all his ethical discussions as a British subject, Isaiah Berlin did fight the Nazis. Sometimes there's no choice. Our humanity fails us, but we must remain realists. We humans have a long way to go, but we do have the tools. Now, one of those tools in Berlin's concept is values pluralism. The concept is very simple. Reality is plural. For many things, especially human values, the subjectivity that gets beaten into our minds, there are many truths, many of them equally valid in terms of basic humane action. I've talked before about the British moral philosopher Philip Foot. Moral philosophy directly addresses those questions that Isaiah Berlin asked. Said them before, they're very simple. How life should be lived and what we should be and do. Philip Foot wrote, "It doesn't matter in the least that there is not an answer to every question." Why bother, right? Irritable reaching, we call it. The idea that because people have different preferences, you can move to the conclusion that there must be a radical breakdown of discussion about good and bad action, that's exactly what I deny and can't let past. Some people care about art, and some people don't. Some people want public money spent one way, and some people don't. You don't conclude, so subjectivism. It's all just whatever anyone thinks. You cannot conclude, so subjectivism, and she does not. Disagreement does not lead to chaotic freefall. Not if you say that's not where this disagreement's going to go. Our questions to ourselves every day need to be, what does it mean to be an ethical human being in this world today? Not what it meant 1,500 years ago. Because unfortunately, today is not like yesterday. Maybe unfortunately. I don't really know. I think about that a lot as an older person. Also, we need to ask, am I meeting that goal of being an ethical being in this world today? Maybe it was fine yesterday, but time keeps moving. If not, if I'm not that, why am I not? Why am I not living up to my basic decisions about ethics? Why are we in the Unitarian tradition, the Transcendentalist tradition, the Humanist tradition, why are we uniquely qualified to practice and preach a thing called values humanism? Well, because we do know the difference between a fact and a truth. As humanist ministers, we don't wear funny outfits because we're not saying we have anything to offer besides basic human thought. That's all we got. And we're not claiming anything else. In terms of your facts, be careful before you start reading up on flat earth. In terms of truths, dream big. Because all the big dreams are human dreams. Because we know that human subjectivity, the human imagination, is a glorious, ever-blooming Garden of Eden, if you will. May human creativity continue to flow and flow. There is no tree of the knowledge of good and evil. There never was, and there wasn't any serpent. Yet somehow, as Philippa Foot, the philosopher, demonstrated with her trolley problems, in the human imagination and in human intuition, we do have that tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And we do know the difference. We feel it, even when we can't explain it. It's intuitional. It's intuition inside of us. No religions do it. All the religions are too new to have changed anything about the human psyche. It's human intuition that we're nearly everybody in the world solves the trolley problems the same way. Why? Human intuition because we evolved as we did on the savannas of Africa. And that's basically all we've got still, except for our plastic minds that can change the way that we think. Right? The scandal for the conventionally religious is that human morality is so darn consistent worldwide. People are so consistently good without any ideas concerning religions. The transcendentalists in our tradition explicitly added intuition as a way of knowing. A way of knowing. The claim is that we use our intuition, and when we do, we can realize the oneness of everything, of us all. The human mind, all of our sentience, the natural world, and all the sentient beings in it, everything is one. It's not a Taoist or Buddhist weird thought. It's the way it is. How do we adjust? That's what the early humanists realized. We human beings are making it up as we go along. Our gods, our governments, our reasons for killing each other, all human creations that meet human needs. It's all made up. No, it's not always our choice to make. Lynchings do occur in the street, and they will again. We are here to say humanity doesn't have to do that again. That's our job. Humanity does not have to do that again. Thank you.